Welcome to Empowered, Mind Body Inspiration. The mind is the map to wholeness, wellness, health. The heart is the key to genius and inspiration. Join me and my guests as we explore how to release and rewire into who you truly are, unique, whole, and empowered. Please like, share, and subscribe. Spiral up, spiral out. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Nia Peeples. Nia is an American singer, actress, and dancer. For more than 30 years, she has graced the screen with her talent and intelligence. Most known for her roles in the hit series Fame, Walker, Texas Ranger, and Pretty Little Liars. Recently, with her son well on his music path, her daughter heading off to college, and her fourth marriage ending, Nia sold everything and went on a walkabout to realign with her greater purpose. Her passion is to empower others. I'm delighted to have her on Empowered. Let's see how it spirals out. Welcome, Nia. So glad to have you on Empowered.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
So where shall we start? You have recently gone on a real inward journey. Like you say, you talk about it as a walkabout. And, you know, I feel like life has always given us exactly what we need for the present moment. And that you're very outspoken about listening to your inner voice right now, because it's so important.
Yeah.
But, you know, I feel like your heritage, your mom, your dad, they're all part of who you are, which is, you know, why you've been always in touch with that. But just tell us, you know, where this real deep urge to go inside started.
Well, let's just say that I've always known that I was more than this body. Like there was always something deeper, something higher, not than anybody else, but then what society was telling me who that I am, right?
Yeah.
And so I always kind of heard that little voice, and it brought me through some amazing experiences. I've succeeded at things at such a high level in so many different arenas. But when about 5 years ago in 2015, when my youngest child went off to college and my fourth marriage was just like not working, I broke up. I started listening. I thought, okay, I got to this place where I was doing everything as right as I knew how to. Like I'm a good person. I believe that these things should work this way. I believe if I do it like that, everything should be good. And it was hard. Things were hard and they weren't coming together in the way that I believed that they could. And so I thought, okay, the only thing that's not right in here is it's not my devotion to what I believe. It's some belief pattern. There's something in my pattern of belief and practices that is not lining up with the all that is. So I let go of everything and I sold my house, and I just started wandering. And the reason for that was that when my youngest child went off to college and my marriage broke up, I sat down and I said, hey, okay, you're free for the first time, like you're singular for the first time in many, many years. What do you want? And I couldn't answer the question, because I had been such a provider for so many people for so long that all I could do was read off lists. And, you know, my daughter needs this, my son needs that, my husband needs that, job needs this. I didn't have an inner connection to my deep driving desires. And I just sat on the beach and I wept, because I knew if I couldn't be in touch with that, I had no idea why I was here. You know. So I started wandering, and the voice started to turn up inside me. And the only rule was, if it felt like push, lean back. If it feels like an invitation, lean in. And that was the beginning of kind of this reintroduction to the true guidance system, which is inside you. You have this body that is this magnificent thing that is connected on so many levels, not just, in the manifested form, but we have this energetic field that feels and senses everything, and it's exchanging information. We just have to come in tune with it. But the most basic guidance system comes in your gut. It comes in the way you feel. Does it feel like a pull or a push? What is it in there? And then it takes some refinement to further be able to more deeply, specifically read those energetic signals. But I started wandering, and that was my only goal. So when something felt like an invitation, like, oh, Peru sounds interesting, my job was move on it. Or, oh, tomatoes on the sandwich or avocados sound good, move on it. I mean, it was everything big to small. It was all of it in between. And through that process, what I began to learn was that there was this egoic story of that I told about who I am. And a lot of people think that ego is conceit, and it's really not. Ego is an identification with self. So I'm loyal, I'm hardworking, I'm the person you can depend on. I will always make things happen. I'm a leader. I have blah, 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 blah. And so when you begin servicing those stories, it's the tail wagging the dog. Those may be true about who I am, but when you begin servicing them and looking for ways to show up and affirm that story, you got it backwards. So I learned that there is this egoic thing that you end up in service with, which leaves you feeling kind of exhausted and in service to this outward story and people who have associated with it. And then there is this inner magnificent being that is ever evolving and expanding, that is magical and connected to everything. And so that journey, I mean, it's been 6 years. I just landed somewhere. So it's been 6 years. And for the first time, the voice said, okay, stop, like root here now. And so I ended up where I am now. And I learned so many things. And the majority of it has been unlearning. Because when you unlearn it, it just is. It's kind of like that Abraham Hicks quote where she says, you are a cork, you float. Just stop doing whatever you're doing that keeps the cork from floating. You're gonna float. Like you are that magnificent being with that voice that's inside the guidance system that tells you in your body what magical things are wanting to form and come together and what the path of least resistance to all that is. And if you trust that, when you trust that and you lean into it, magical things happen and you're happy, happy, joyful. What is that experience? We have this list of things that we've learned. Okay, if I have a house, if I have a mate, if I have my kids, if I have this job, I'm going to be happy. But I will tell you, as someone who has succeeded in achieving everything I've dreamed of along the way, like I want this, I want that, I know how to focus and attain it. There's always this low-grade satisfaction once you get there, because the next thing has got to be more, bigger, and better. So you're there for a minute and then it's the next thing, but it's the thing someone else laid out for you. What is it that your body, your soul has incarnated into this body to express? That's where real joy and satisfaction come from. So it's been an amazing year, 5, almost 6 years of learning about who I really am, which is so much more than this physical body, that we feel and touch and taste. It's so much more than that. And it's been quite extraordinary, filled with mystical experiences and deeper knowings, a remembrance of so much more than what we've been taught. And once you tap into that deeper knowing, you begin to look up and see the information that's flying at you and see its incompleteness and its manipulation, which is why we're where we are right now in the world.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we recognize that there's been so many programs laid down that, if you follow them blindly, you can go right over a cliff. And
well, and we do it on so many levels. I mean, having compassion for everyone. I mean, for goodness sake, you were born into these parents, this family that you were born into. They gave you your name. You didn't even feel into what name you want. Like, this was the name they gave you. You were put into school. You know that when the bell rings, it's time to get up and go to the next class. Like, there are these things that don't, let's not even call them nefarious. It's just the way it works. And you begin programmed. When the light turns red, you stop. When the light turns green, you go. And some of it is like, okay, we need to know these things to function in society in this way that people don't crash into each other. But because some of the powers that be understand the power of programming, it is manipulated. I mean, that's what branding is. That's what marketing is. What do you think marketing is? To sell even good things. I have this beautiful glass here. It's from Mexico. It has a story about where it came from. I have this delicious water I'm drinking out of it. There's a story behind that. Is artisan water that came from whatever. They know what you need and what you want to hear, and how to manipulate it to a point where it's right in your face and becomes something that you think you have to have. They know how to do it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's why you can't disconnect from this internal thing.
Yeah. Did you see that in Hollywood too?
See which?
See the programs and the use of manipulation.
I'm like, well, it's what we're trained up to do.
Yeah.
I mean, stop and think about what I'm trained up to do. I'm trained as an actress to access my truths, implement them through a character enough to make you feel what I'm feeling. All I have to do is feel it myself, and have the tools to take that truth that is mine and insert it into the character.
Yeah.
And as someone who has been on the marketing thing for different shows, yes, exactly. You can tell the truth, but not tell the whole truth. So it gives the whole story. And that in and of itself manipulates. So I'll give you an example. If I was hosting a show called The Party Machine. The Party Machine with Nia Peeples, 6 nights a week, whatever it was. It was a music show, right? And so we had all these statistics, some of which were fantastic. This age range is showing up. And then you have the words, it's the coolest party on the planet. Okay, says who? That's an opinion, but we can say that, right? And then you have these certain statistics that show you that aspects of the show are really well liked and being well received. But there's other things that were weak that we didn't share, that show you, some people don't like this about the show. Well, we just don't share that. And that telling the truth, when it's a partial truth, doesn't give you the whole story, but it really, it's manipulative. But that's why we go on the shows, to show you, hey, this is a cool party happening right here. And these people are showing up, and it's doing, these numbers on it are doing great. So come and join us. But we're not showing you the weak side, because we want more people to come. So that's just the way that it goes.
Yeah, exactly. It just is.
Yeah.
But, you learn to get so in touch with yourself, like that, going deep within, even to be a great actress. Like it honed you so that when you chose to do it, you knew the path. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think even it's really interesting. I mean, the skill set for being an actor, like the toolbox, is an incredible toolbox, because it is accessing your own feelings and your own emotions, and being able to reach in and take them when you need to, and being aware of what they are. They're not separate. They are your own, and they're associated with experiences. So it's like this therapeutic processing. So it's a little bit amazing to me that actors can also be so easily manipulated. But when you go beyond that tool set, there is this egoic story that we all tell about who we are. And so this is where I think some of the big problems have happened in Hollywood. I never believed that the most important thing in my life was to win an Academy Award. I don't even belong to the Academy. I've been in the business for 40 years. I could have been in it for 40 years. It just was never, I was raising my family. It took too much time to fill out the form. It's just like,
I love that.
Yeah, for me, I'm so like a Harvey Weinstein would never get over on me because I don't care who you are. My wholeness is more important than you. You might be able to make or break me in Hollywood. Oh well. Until Hollywood rights itself, I don't need to be made in Hollywood at that level, whatever. I always felt like the fact that I'm alive and that I breathe is more important than any label you could put on me. And this is what each of us needs to know. Every single person has an important part to play in what's unfolding. It doesn't matter if you're writing, number one books or starring in a movie or the president of the United States or leading a country. In your space, you are so important because we're all part of this unique patterning. We're all part of this thing. I'm on the web that you're on too. So we're all, if you think of it like a spider web, we're all these little spiders. As each one moves, we're all being impacted on how we can move. That's consciousness. And so each of us, it's so important for each of us to really hone in on that guidance system and who we really are and express to our fullness and do it with compassion, knowing that we are in this human form. And so there's frailties, there's these self-limiting beliefs that we're always going to be unwinding. Always, always, always. Abraham Hicks says, you never get it wrong because you never get it done.
Right.
So, okay. Yeah, make a mistake. And yeah, that's not even a mistake because it's showing me, it's making me more aware. Oh, I'm not going to step that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. From very young, I was cautious of fame. Fame, that's your movie. But because I felt like you could get manipulated and lose your path in your own self, and other people could take it over and steer it. But you really navigated it well. You really stayed true to who you were,
there were, to a certain degree, yes, and in other aspects, no. Like if you look at my music career, I stepped right in and they said, here's the kind of music we need you to do. And I went, okay, knowing full well what I needed musically as an artist was to work with one particular producer that could help me evolve it. But I gave into that. The bigger stuff I would never, like if I felt like I was losing myself, there's that, no, that I always held on to that. Mm-hmm. And to a degree, a large degree, that's part of what made me such an attraction to people because there's this thing of I want what she has. I want what she has. There is this power and this surety of who I am that you can't. It's almost like when you meet people that are just okay with who they are, like they're good. This is me. I'm expanding. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to keep moving. There's something about it that's so delicious. You're like, oh, I want more of that in my life, right? Hollywood doesn't know how to measure that. So if throughout all of the shows that I've done, they test you incredibly. Like they test your face, your performance. They've always got people push, turning the little dials. Oh, I like it when she comes on. I don't like it when she goes off, or whatever. So you have all these things and it's called a Q rating. They used to have what's called a Q rating where you'd be rated like who's the most popular, but they would want to break it down as to why, like, what is it that makes that person popular? They would break it down like she's this old, or she looks like that, or, or he's this nationality. And they would break it down like that. But what they cannot quantify is your essence. They can't quantify that. And so what they're not able to measure or grasp or manipulate is who you are as a human being that is so solid that it draws people to you. It draws the right things to you. And that's what we're all after. We all are that. We are that. So how do we come more in touch with that and live from that place and take what comes with it? Just take what comes with it. I'm here. I have an enormous skill set in film and television and in music because it's what I've lived in for my entire adult life. And there are expressions that I feel I want to create, right? But I I'm not measuring the success of it by whether or not Hollywood gets it and cashes in on it. Because the system is crooked. If it can't hold, that's not even my job. My job is to express it and create it and pay attention to how the universe is lining up for it to do its greatest work. And that greatest work may be I inspire my daughter to move on and do something. The greatest work may be it becomes a hit movie or a hit book that impacts thousands. I mean, when you stop and think about someone that impacted the world incredibly, like Martin Luther King, you go, wow, I'll never be a Martin Luther King. But you know what? Who was his mother? How impactful do you think she was on him? You never hear about her.
So true.
Right? Be doing something important?
Yeah.
Yes. So whatever our role is in it, we'll feel complete as we go. And we know that we are adding to the patterning of this world in the most powerful way by being true to who we are.
Right? Because even if you're a janitor and you're doing what you're saying, being completely happy and true to yourself, you're a magnet. Like you say, people look at people like that different. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Right. It's powerful.
Right. And we think about, well, how are we showing up in the world and how are we impacting based on what measurement, based on who we're interacting with daily, how many people are seeing it, how many people are being impacted by what I'm physically doing. But what we have to understand is that more powerful than how we're physically impacting is how we are energetically impacting. If you consider that the greatest part of who we are actually exists on the other side of the veil. So there's this is just my way of seeing it. I don't think we have the words to explain it. But when you say we are all one, there is this giant soup of souls, we are all one in this space on the other side of the veil. And aspects of us choose to incarnate down here. So there's a little tiny piece down here. We are a soul in a body. We're not a body having a soul. So we're all connected up there. So the more in alignment I can take this body of mine and the more I can align it with that greater part of who I am, the more I'm impacting everybody that's a part of that, which is everyone. And in doing that, we are helping repattern the consciousness. Like me tucking away in the woods and doing whatever it is I feel really called to do right now will have more impact on the energetic grid of the planet and the consciousness and what we're creating moving forward than this interview right here, even if if it reached 10 million people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And, I feel like there's been an agenda for the last, I don't know, maybe a few decades to get people to disconnect from this power, or even hundreds of years to get us to forget how powerful we are, to give it away to religion, to government, to a health agenda, doctors, and not listen to what you're saying.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Well, and that's people sometimes have a hard time believing in the nefariousness of people's agendas. And even if you take that away, if you think about a perpetrator and a victim, the victim is, when people who are victims, they're usually victims constantly. Like it's hard for them to break. They're constantly being victimized. And perpetrators are always perpetrating. But the perpetrator didn't go to perpetrator school. And the victim didn't go to victim school. But the energy knows how to find each other so that it can feed off of the victim, and the victim can experience it's living in the pattern of victimhood. It's an energy that finds itself. When you look at the ocean and you look at the eddies and you look at the tide pools, the rocks are set up a certain way. And when they come in, the water just starts swirling. It finds its space. It learns how to all work together that way. If you don't want to look at the nefariousness of their intention, then what you can do is acknowledge the way energetics work. And if somebody is so programmed to believe that what they're doing is for the betterment of humanity, if you take Bill Gates and you think, okay, he's been super programmed and raised up to think, oh my God, if I don't reduce the population, we're all going to go crash. Well, that's the agenda he's got, is to save humanity. What did he do? He gave up. Again, it's his own patterning. So is there an agenda? Absolutely. How many people know there is? I think everybody's in it for different reasons. Do the pharmaceutical companies know that this is about reducing the population? Probably not. On the biggest level, it's about money. Maybe somebody at the tip top knows, or maybe the pharmaceutical companies are being used by the people at the tip top. I mean, it doesn't matter. All of it is resolved by us coming into our own truth. If Bill Gates suddenly came into that and went, oh my God, this is horrible what I'm doing and what I've done. Imagine how much would shift inside that. He's one of the weakest people I've ever seen.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, there's so many intelligent ways to handle planet Earth, and by collaboration, right?
Yes.
Like,
and that's an interesting thing. You know, when you look at the patterns of the universe, they figure themselves out. And as far as I'm concerned, the Earth is way more powerful than we are, and is going to right itself. Whether we're able to stay on it or not is a whole other issue. She's gonna work it out.
Yeah.
Will we be a part of it or not?
Sometimes I think there's a pole shift imminent, like it happens every 33,000 years. We're very close to it. And that's Mother Earth's way of upticking and maybe shaking off some fleas. I don't know. But yeah, you have to be in the right place at that time. Very important.
Right. And the only way to know, this is a really interesting thing. I mean, the only way to know is that internal thing.
Mm-hmm.
People survive the Holocaust. Why them and not other people? Some people survive the tsunami. Why those people and not other people? What is it that it seems so random? But I do believe that we only know where we're meant to be by listening internally. We all have a place. And if it feels like fear, that's not the way I want to go. I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and David Avocado Wolf was on there. And he's like, he's on fire, man. You got to get out of California. And I've had a lot of seers tell me this. I grew up in California. We live on a freaking fault line. It was a joke growing up where we said, oh, it's going to fall off into the ocean. And they're saying there's going to be all this massive earth events in California. And David Avocado Wolf was saying, got to get out of there, get to Austin or whatever. And yeah, he's probably right. But for some reason, I'm called here to Northern California. I don't exactly know why. And I had to ask myself, okay, I have that information and I agree with it. It makes complete sense. Would leaving feel like fear? And right now, for me, it does. If I went away, because it makes sense up here, but it feels like I'm acting out of fear, that's not where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be here for whatever reasons, whether it has to do with connecting with the grid line here, connecting with certain people who are going to shift certain things. I don't know, but I listen here.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you run out of fear and you end up jumping from the frying pan into the fire, right? Like you really have to listen. And what's the worst that happens? That, we leave and go into spirit?
Yeah.
Not, I'm personally not that afraid of that. I think I'm a little more afraid of living through a pole shift and the disaster that might be after.
I know. Right?
Right?
Who knows?
I think like you, to just listen and stay calm and centered and do what feels right.
Yes. And don't be afraid to see what is. I mean, it's such a massive time right now. Um, it's really a massive time of disclosure because it's been happening for decades. I mean, most people aren't aware of Operation Paperclip and what happened, you know, after World War II, what all that agenda was about, and how where the money came to fund all the experiments that were going on in those Nazi concentration camps. Who was paying for that? It wasn't
Right.
Hitler.
Yeah.
It was, where did all that experimentation end up after? It was flown out of Berlin through Canada into the United States. Operation Paperclip. Where did, so there's all these, there's so much disclosure. It's been happening for a long time under a branding of, for Americans, under the branding of, we are the land of the free, the home of the brave. We protect everybody. We write everything. Well, that's a brand, and it's not true. But as we stand up tall under that brand and just believe it without looking up to really see, then nobody's being held accountable to that brand. And so that's just a label. What's in it? You can buy cereal that says fresh, clean life or abundance or vitality. It's called vitality. But what's in it could be poison. You don't know. That's just what the word says. And so there's a lot, to me, we're just living in a time of incredible disclosure. And very clearly, I mean, when I realized what was going on, I literally fell on the floor weeping. And I went for a long walk on the beach, and I just said, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, what can I, it's so massive and pervasive. What can I do about this? And I very clearly heard a voice say, just because you can't see things happening doesn't mean they aren't, meaning good things. And what are we starting to see now? We're seeing 1,000 lawyers sue the World Economic Forum. We're seeing, frontline doctors come out and, put their careers on the line to speak truth. We see educators coming together and suing, school boards and all this. This is what it takes, but it's just disclosure. And the other thing was, you have to be willing to look at the evil and see it for what it is, and transmute it within yourself and move from this place of love. You can't just turn a blind eye. You have to be willing to see it and move as you are inspired to move from a place of love.
Right. And I think that many chose to be here right now for
We all
exactly what you're saying, right? Yeah,
Yep.
like we can see it as exciting. I know I felt bells and whistles go off when what's happening now started to come out. It felt like, how you felt awake before? It felt like ding, 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 ding. This is why you're here. Pay attention.
Right.
All hands on deck, right? Because it has been planned for, well, a long time.
It's been
Yeah.
planned for a long time. And I think the thing that was part of the big wake up call for me was, I guess I believed, because like you, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but we went alternative medicine with my kids. Chinese herbs, homeopathy, stuff that works together with how, like, the magic of the body, how it naturally works.
Mhm.
And so, I was aware that there were vaccines, and then you couldn't put your kids in school unless they were vaccinated, or unless it's a religious whatever exemption. And so, of course, they went to the Church of Nia. But I was thinking that whole time, oh, there's this corporate thing that happens. But as the United States of America, our laws we're going to start working together to clear that garbage out, like just to clear it out. But I saw it going in the opposite direction. And I remember I was a huge Obama fan. And I remember being aware, and I'm not a big politician. I actually think the system's broken, and I don't believe in two-party systems at all. I don't belong to a party. I don't think that's the way to go. So I remember hearing that the person he put in charge of our food basically had sat on the board of Monsanto, I clicked like that clicked in my head, and I clocked it and went, okay, that's really weird. That's why is Monsanto in charge of the development of our food? And I just tucked it back here. Now the lid was lifted, and I went, oh my gosh, the intention from the top, from our entire government, is to move it in this way. It wasn't about our government needing to weed out the little problems. No, they are the problem. They're part of the agenda. And that was just like, like, oh my God. And if you think about it, what got us here was individually, we relinquished power. Just one step at a time. Like, you look now, you got parents that are faced with, are you going to vaccinate your 8-year-old to put him in school? Well, how about, I don't need your school. Your whole school system is screwed up. So you know what? I'll teach my kid myself. Oh, I can't afford to do that. All right, let's put together a neighborhood plan. We can find some teachers that would rather teach truthfully. Let's come together, not give away something. Don't give your child away to that shop. You know, we're being faced with that. We're being faced with the health of our children. Are you willing to now hand your child over to this experimental drug? It's not even a vaccine. And this is what we're faced with. Everybody has to choose, but be confident that everybody in every sector is having to choose. Each politician now has to be faced with this and say, am I going to choose the party over what I deeply know? Because it's life or death now. You no longer can a politician say, well, you know, we're going to take a little bit of a punch in the gut now, but it's going to be for the greater good of all. You can't say that anymore. People are dying, and you are responsible for it if you vote this way or that, you know, as a politician. So in every sector, in the police, with the healthcare, in the school systems, every sector, each of us is being faced with this, you know, and I might not, you know, make a big giant wave change in this lifetime, but I am devoted to how I show up and my own alignment. And I know that's the greatest, that is to the highest good of all.
Yeah. And, you know, that's all that each individual needs to do is look below the surface, look at the facts, and make the decision from an empowered place.
Yes.
You know, don't just blindly follow. Yeah.
Well, and I completely believe that consciousness is king. I mean, I really, really do. For God's sake, I know people who have lived on nothing but air. Like, I know breatharians. You know, what you believe puts you in will meet you with what is. You know what I mean? So if you choose to get the jab, do it consciously. Don't just go, okay, fine. I want life to get back to normal. Life is not getting back to what you think is normal. Life is evolving and it's getting better, but it's going through an incredible transition. So, you know, if you're going to choose it because you think it's the right thing, choose it because you believe it's something that's going to help your body with this thing that you believe is there. Don't be afraid of the information so you can inform yourself.
Yeah. I think the thing I find the hardest is how the information is hidden and the transparency just isn't there, you know, and I find that deeply offending because
it's manipulative.
Yeah.
And they're right out lying. I mean, this is the thing that is shocking to me. A friend of mine, she's one of the amazing politicians. Actually, she had to step down from being mayor here. Her name is Renette Senum. She was the mayor of Nevada City. And she was the first politician I saw come out and go, hey, you know, when COVID first hit, I shut the city down tight. I told everybody to go get 2 weeks, you know, provisions. But then when I saw the numbers, she's like, it didn't make sense. So she opened her city back up, and she ended up having to resign because there was so much whatever from the city council and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, she is on the cutting edge of all this stuff now and really doing what she can do on the political end of it. And she was saying that, VAERS is where all the reporting of all the issues with the vaccines, the downside, the problems that are existing, they get reported to VAERS. And she said in real time, someone took a video of all the numbers here, and then they just started reducing. And what people don't realize is that there's technology that can allow other people to do it. It doesn't even have to be anyone in VAERS. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with Del Bigtree, but Del did Vaxxed, right? And so Del was doing this documentary, and he was telling the story about how he was sitting in his apartment in New York City cutting the video when somebody started taking over the controls and dumping the information. He was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They had to unplug everything.
Oh, wow.
That technology exists. People don't realize they can create the weather now. That stuff, that technology is so real. It's so real. And people don't, I think it's hard for a lot of people to go, oh, they would never do that. Well, the truth is maybe most people wouldn't. Maybe everyone who works at VAERS wouldn't do that. Maybe the people overseeing VAERS wouldn't ever do that. But somebody else has the technology to do it. It's happening. It's really happening,
Yeah. It's crazy. And then you don't even want to get into where 5G could go,
Right. And we can't separate ourselves from the evolution of technology. I mean, we created technology. We're a part of nature, and nature evolves, and human beings evolve, and technology is a part of it. There's amazing, wonderful things that 5G can do. It's, is it in good hands or bad hands? So again, consciousness is king. What can we do? What can we do about that?
Yeah. So what can we do? Let's go back to balancing of the male and female energy, because I think that's a big part of where we're moving at this time.
Yeah. Well, the balancing of the masculine, the feminine, and let's clarify what that is, right? So masculine and feminine energy exists within each of us and is expressed like in a woman. Basically, it's expressed as more feminine, and a male, it's expressed more of the masculine. The feminine is that part that you cannot totally grasp, like you can't touch it. It is that knowing. Is if you think about, like, the symbol for the feminine is the upturned. If you look at, like, the Star of David, it's two triangles, one going this way and one going this way. The one that's open is receiving from heaven. That's the feminine. The masculine is pointed. So if you think about it like this, if you come into the feminine, that deep knowing, the action out of it is the masculine. So all it really means is come in touch with this first and then act. Come into the knowing and then act. Come into the frequency of love and then act. Because even an act of love, and love is a funny, funny word. People can do an act of love from a very masculine place, and it's manipulative. Come into the frequency of love, into that feeling space, and then act. That's the balance. It's almost the order in which you act. And our feminine has been so shut down for so long that we're not used to being in touch with it enough. Everything is mental, act. But this is a coherent thing here. I mean, they work together. One of the wonderful studies, I remember when I got turned on to the Heart Math Institute, I was like, Oh, that's incredible. Because people are science, science, science. So the Heart Math Institute, are you familiar with the Heart Math Institute?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
And resonance.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're like the measurement behind how the heart actually works, because it's not just a pump, it's firing off electrically, and it sends more signals to the brain than the other way around. And then there's this electromagnetic field. It's like 5,000 times more magnetic than the brain. There's this field of information that it's perceiving and putting off, and all your organs entrain to it. And so as the heart fires off, all your organs line up with it, and it becomes this beautiful orchestra. And so it's not just the pumping of the blood, it's the electromagnetic field, like it's electrically firing off. And so what is stress? Stress is when the heart is having a hard time firing off in a really smooth manner, like a rhythmic manner. When it's firing off like that, then all of your organs line up and it starts to work together. If you think of it like an orchestra, the heart is the conductor. So if the conductor is doing this and every instrument is following, you have this beautiful symphony. But if the conductor is all over the place, nobody can follow, and everybody, as beautiful as each instrument is and as beautiful as each individual sound is, it doesn't come together as a symphony, and it sounds like a cacophony of pain in your head. So this is, this is part of the thing of recognizing what the feminine is too. And I love it.
Yeah. It's so beautifully said. And it goes back to, what you were talking about at the beginning. When you're in touch with that and in resonance, then you're in touch with that place that's connected to everything. Yep. And that's where true inspiration comes from, and how we know how to move forward, right? In our unique way.
Yeah. And it's how you get in touch with what's already lining up. So, you were talking about sacred geometry before we got on this. And the thing that just astounds me about sacred geometry and the way that, to me, it's just like, whoa, if you think about the flower of life and how Fibonacci sequence and all the pi and phi ratio, the platonic solids, those are the building blocks of life, all exist within this geometric pattern. And you look at snowflake, every snowflake is a perfect geometric pattern, but unique, like every single snowflake. And you go, oh my God, the patterning of the universe, the natural patterning of the universe is perfection and uniqueness. That's how it all works. When you go out in the forest and you look, like I'll take a hike here and you see these trees, and you'll see that they have grown side by side, and they've grown so big that now they've become one tree at the top, and they've learned to work together. And you're like, whoa, that's how our bodies work. That's how our cells work. That's how babies are made inside. They split perfectly into this thing. It's the natural way that we are. And so if we can come into alignment with that, we just go, it's already working for us. And how we know we're in tune with these things that are these perfect patterns that are wanting to be created and inviting us to be a part of it, it's through the heart. It's through that guidance system of feeling. And it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Because then you're faced with things like, well, will I be provided for and have abundance without making a ton of money? Stuff like that. Like we've been taught, you got to work hard, you got to save your money, you got to, all of those things. And the truth is, I'm always provided for in this abundant, magical, wonderful way. And if it's money that needs to show up, it shows up. It's,
Yeah. Yeah, it is the trust. But you can feel when you're in coherence, can't you? Like you can feel your heart and your connection to everything. It's kind of crazy. And it's really hard to explain, but I've been feeling it the last 2 days. Like,
I had a full moon last night.
Yeah. You too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you just have to sit still. Mm-hmm. And that's really what meditation is about for me, or walking in nature, is just to still this mind so you can come into that point of total connectedness and become aware of those patterns that are uniquely creating around you, and what the path of least resistance to the manifestation of it is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's actually what I love the most about what's happened in the last year and a half is a lot of the hectic, reasons that we think we need to find excitement, they're gone, right? So we've been kind of forced to settle down and just be in the moment. And I get the most joy. Like I've got hummingbirds outside the front door for the first time and, saying hello to a new pigeon in the barn. Like the simple things are magical. And I knew it as a child, but it's really come back into my life recently. And it's really incredible.
Well, and the universe gives us signs. They're all around us. They're all around us. We're just taught, we've been pushed out of awareness of all of that. And that's
it is. It's programming to think that we need something more exciting or something bigger or more glamorous or, the next car or the new dress or the better shoes.
And if you want these because they're fun, yay. They're fun. There's nothing wrong with anything. I'm not saying there's wrong with anything material.
No.
Consciousness behind why we're doing it.
Yeah, it is fun, right? It is fun. I was a ballroom dancer. And so.
Oh, fantastic.
Dresses, shoes, eyelashes, loved it. But, and now, you can see I don't know, it's just different. And like you say, you go inside in order to do that well and connect to your heart. In order to do any of those performing arts, you have to. Yeah. So let's hear about your book. Because it's such a beautiful parable for what's happening right now.
Here's the little apple tree. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Yep. Wait, that light's
so beautiful.
That's sweet.
By Nia.
It's called The Little Apple Tree. And this little parable came to me. I woke up in the morning and I had this dream about this parable, like this story. And for me, it was really a parable. It was a story about divorce, but it's really about your own relationship to yourself. And so when I went down and I talked to my friend, I told him the little story. And basically it's the story of this farmer, this young kid who dreams of being a farmer. And he goes into a little apple, like a country store, and he sees this little apple tree in this little box. And he goes, oh my God, I'm going to be a farmer. I'm going to raise this apple tree. And he takes it home and they love each other. She's like, oh yeah, I want to give you the best apples. And he's like, I'm going to take good care of you so he can become a farmer. And he goes and he puts her in his little barn and he waters her every day and he keeps her, trimmed up. But he wants to keep her safe out of the wind and the sun, the soil. He wants to keep her safe in his little barn. And she starts to grow. And he's like, oh my God, like her head's up to the ceiling. And so he cuts her back and her roots are popping out of the box and he's cutting it back and he's trying real hard and it's just getting to be a lot of work. And she apologizes and says, I'm sorry, I'll I love you so much. I'm going to try to stay small in this barn and give you a bunch of more apples. And she can't keep from growing. So she falls asleep one night, even though she's made this promise to him to stay small. And she dreams of being this magnificent apple tree outside in the wind and the rain and the soil and the sun. And she's just, she wakes up and she's so happy. She holds on to that feeling and this scary thing starts to happen. She starts growing and she bursts out of the barn and like, wow, she becomes this magnificent apple tree. And the young farmer shows up and starts weeping. And she's like, why are you weeping? And he said, why have you grown so tall? I can't take care of you anymore. Mm. He just wants to take care of her. Did I not love you enough? What have I done wrong? And she said, I appreciate that, but I'm an apple tree. And an apple tree needs the wind and the sun and the rain and the soil to become all it was meant to be. And he gets really upset and he marches back to his house. And he cries and cries and cries, and he cries himself to sleep. And then he has a dream that night that the apple tree becomes many, many more little apple trees and on and on and on. And he wakes up and he goes, oh, And something scary happens to him. Like he's like, I'm learning how to be a farmer. He goes out and he plows down the barn and starts doing, planting more trees. And basically he ends up saying, thank you for being the magnificent apple tree you were always meant to be, because you have taught me how to be the magnificent farmer I was always meant to be. And so it's this book about relationships, and there's something so beautiful and unvictimy about it. Like nobody's blaming anybody. And I've workshopped it with elementary school kids and high school kids and their parents. And it's powerful because parents cry when they read it. They're like, oh my God, how am I, clipping the roots of my child by not letting them expand? And the kids, I mean, honestly, we've all been both, the little apple tree and the farmer. And it's really about your relationship to yourself and understanding that as you come into alignment with who you are, no matter how uncomfortable it makes other people in the moment, that is the greatest opportunity you're giving them to stand up in their truth and be their most magnificent selves. The best thing you can do for everybody is be the most of who you are, truthfully. That's it. Not bending over to accommodate someone, but standing up fully. And that's what the book is about. And so it's changed lives. I have it in a pilot school in New Mexico. And the kids, my God, their reading went up by 68%. Their math went up by 86%. And it's impacting their own knowing. Like, of course, there's less, conflict within the classroom, but it's impacting how they feel about their own genius, about their own intelligence, about the pressure they feel from other people to be something else. And aren't we all living that now? Just because we're living it not in school, but we're living it in the real world, in work, doesn't mean we're not living it. We're experiencing the same thing. There's always that pressure. Look what's happening in the world with the vaccines and COVID. Pressure, pressure, pressure. And they know it. That's why they're saying, look, you need to police your people. Tell them that, do it for your neighbors. Get the shot so you can keep them safe. Excuse me, if the shot is a vaccine meant to keep me safe, then that's enough, isn't it? Why do I have to tell them to get it to keep me safe? But they know the psychology behind it. So all we know that is true is to come into alignment this way. And that's what the book is about. And there's the artistry in it is just so beautiful. The artist let me show you some of this.
Yeah, show us.
There's sacred geometry through all of it.
Really? Oh,
yeah. So the artist just did this incredible job with all the artwork. And look at her. And each one of the other pages has sacred geometry rolling all the way through it here and then onto the page. And it's just really, really beautiful. So yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, it is so powerful. And when you resonate with that and realize you've tried to keep yourself small because of someone else's expectations, right? Or what's expected of you. Yeah.
And what we expect of ourselves. Like we put these judgments on ourselves. That's even more powerful, these judgments. Like if my parents are expecting me to do something, there's this judgment that I'm going to show up that way. Yeah. If I don't have that judgment on myself, then their expectations are theirs to hold, not mine.
Yeah.
It really comes down to our own judgment on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And you harbor it. You feel guilty if you're not living up to someone else's expectations but you really grow when you let go of that.
Completely. Yeah. And that's what we need right now. If each person would just do that, think about it, whatever powers that be, how many are they compared to the numbers of us? Minuscule.
Right.
All we have to do is stand up and go, nah, no, thanks.
Yeah. I'm going to be my own apple tree.
I don't want the shot.
A really healthy, strong one. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine if all the doctors that were faced with this thing that they know what it is just went, I don't care how much money you're paying me. No, you can't find me because I quit.
Yeah. I think if we removed money from the whole equation, it would be different.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they've done. If you notice, the first thing they did was shut down the economies. People couldn't go to work. Entrepreneurial businesses,
Yeah. Yeah.
they put in a place to need money to function.
Yeah.
So we have to create a new way.
Beautiful. Well, I love your way. I think we should hold that parable in all our hearts. And how do people find you, hon? How do they buy your book?
They can go to niapeoples.com and to buy the book. They can also just go to YouTube to watch it because I put up a little slideshow of it, me reading and my son playing the guitar. And then to help support these things that I'm doing through the book, buy a book, share it. I have people that have, purchased 30 of them to put in the schools. And it's amazing because it allows the teacher, what these teachers are doing is they're creating curriculum around it. And that's where, like, they were so inspired to be all this teacher that they are meant to be, that they started creating all these incredible curriculum around it and sharing it with the kids. And that's how the kids are being impacted. It's not just from the reading of the book. The teachers were impacted by the reading of the book, and then they express through the curriculum. And then the kids express through their artwork and through the sharing with their parents. And so if you want to go see what it is, you can go onto YouTube first and then go to niapeoples.com to buy it, or Amazon if you have an Amazon account, and share it, because it's a powerful, powerful message.
Right. And, when you started out and cried on the beach and then, went through all of that and woke up one morning with this parable, could you have imagined how it would ripple out and affect people? Like, we just don't know, it's incredible.
No. And you're already impacting people. That's with or without a book, with or without, you just you cannot measure it by the standards that these crooked systems, these systems that are built on money. And there's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with systems of trade, because we need to. It's the emphasis and the story that money is God. That's the problem. Money should be like, oil in the wheel, not the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are impacting as you move through your life. Know that you are doing what you're here to do, as you come center. That's why your soul chose to create at this time.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect message to leave it with, everyone with. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for everything. I mean, how incredible it is that you felt the need to do something and went and learned how to create a podcast.
Life is fun. And, and you just know in your heart, and that's what you're saying too. Love it. Thank you so much, Nia. I love what you're doing. Yeah. Love you.
Love what you're doing. I really appreciate it. So you guys get out there and do whatever this thing is that's calling you, and just continue to come center. Continue to come center. Have compassion for yourself. If you have that relationship with yourself and you just keep working on that, it directly impacts all of your relationships. It just does. You'll see some of your relationships go away, and that might seem wrong. But when you think about it, well, wait a minute, you complain about your relationships because you're bending over. But when you stand up, what are you going to bring? Relationships that can meet you where you really are. And that's okay if they go away. They're shorter than you. They're like me. They're tiny. They're 5'2". No. So just be okay with it. There's the truest thing is to come center with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Tiny but mighty.
Yeah. Tiny but true. Yeah.
Thank you, hon. And for everyone out there, don't forget, don't give away your power to anyone else. Be the creator of your own life. Spiral up, spiral out.
That's awesome.